Sound.
What's up, party people? Todd Tramonte here with my buddy Jason Simard for another real estate conversation. And I think we got a good one today. We were kind of batting it back and forth earlier, shooting each other some messages about kind of what's on our mind and what's a topic worth discussing. And especially in light of the last one we did and a lot of what really both of our companies are going through, we want to talk about one question today. And the question is this: do you have a job or do you have a business? Right now, it's not the first time anyone's discussed this idea of making sure you treat your real estate world like a business, right? So we'll get into it, man. Jason is dealing right now with kind of that transition from his has been a business for a long time. We'll talk more about that, but from primarily production to primarily leadership without the production and some potential future opportunities as well. I've been in a role out of production for a significant period of time and have been able to experience the real excitement of being in what I would consider my core areas of giftedness most of the time. Certainly not all the time, but most of the time. So I'll talk about a little kind of matrix I use for that. And we'll talk about, Jason's transition from, I'm sure he's been where I've been. His was much quicker, but I've been in that job phase much longer than I would like to have been. So anyway, what are your initial bullet point thoughts on this? And we'll just kind of wrestle it to the ground.
Well, I've talked to a lot of people in the real estate industry, as you know, and one of the common things that I've noticed is being a high producer doesn't mean you're a really great business owner. And they're two different hats, two different mindsets. And most people just really get into this business and just look to get really busy and try and sell a lot of houses and, produce high income. And nobody actually builds the business, or at least very few build the business with the idea of establishing a foundation, systems, a structure that will continue on without you having to be the main person doing it. And so I've looked at, before getting the business, I looked at some of the best in the industry and some people that have done successfully and were able to exit production. And I try to basically create my own modern version of that type of business so that I could do the same. And my goal was to do it within 5 years. Now, I'm blessed and lucky that I may be able to actually do it this year. And that's something I'm working on right now. First phase for me was to, exit buyer production and then focus solely on listings. And I've done that for the last year and a half. And now I'm making the next transition, is how to phase out of that. So I started with the end in mind. And that's something that a lot of people maybe don't do. They just kind of sort of get into it and just start getting going. And I've seen some amazing talents. The guys are producing, guys producing like millions of dollars in GCI and doing unbelievable. But then I think to myself, if they got hit by a Coke truck tomorrow, what would happen to their business? And I feel like their business would evaporate very quickly.
Oh, instantly. Not even like 90 days later, like transactions just wouldn't get done. And it's really not like this indictment that these people are horrible people or that they're stupid or something. It's highly likely that the point you just made is absolutely true. They didn't begin with the end in mind, or the only end they ever had in mind was the next commission. Right. And they start over every day. It's like, let me get another one. Let me get another one. Let me get another one. Instead of creating some of the systems you're talking about. Now, when you say the word systems, if someone's watching or listening to this, that could mean a lot of different things, right? It could mean a transactional system, which is needed, but it could also mean marketing systems, lead generation and conversion systems, and understanding the boundary and the balance of automation and customization and manual work. The value of ethical leverage, right? Having people that work with you, but not this like for you, under you type of mentality. And we did talk about a lot of this on a previous episode we did about kind of getting out of production. So we won't linger on that specific stuff too much, but it's obviously relevant to the conversation. But let's just kind of define the big differences, right? What does it look like in our world, if you want to answer this, Jason, for it to be a job? Okay,
so here's the thing. There's some people that are doing unbelievable production, and I've been there myself. They are so busy in the whirlwind of their business that they have no time for their family. They have no time for anything. They're constantly on the clock 24/7. And believe me, I've been guilty of that myself. And
yep, me too.
Guilty. A lot of people have. And so I understand it. I mean, literally your phone is you're always going, always, always, always. And the problem with that is if you haven't laid any foundation and you haven't started leveraging and putting systems in play and hiring really good quality people to become experts in specific areas of your business, you're going to be stuck in that whirlwind for a long time. And the only way out, in my opinion, will be all the investments you make outside of real estate. So, are you buying investment properties? Are you, building up other businesses, or what are you doing outside of real estate? Because the thing with our business is you're always chasing a new paycheck all the time. There's no guarantee. It's not always predictable. The only way that I've found that you can create predictability is having the systems, the lead generation systems, the follow-up systems, the right departments and people. And that gives you some predictability in your business. But again, it's never a guaranteed thing. So a lot of these people that I've looked up to that are incredible producers, they all had something in common, which was if they got hit by the Coke truck tomorrow, they would not have a business, and their income would immediately evaporate, and their family, could potentially suffer if they didn't make the right outside investments. Now, some of them have made incredible investments outside of real estate and made a lot of wealth there and are set financially, and so they'll be fine. But there's a lot of people that won't be fine in this business, and they literally have no exit plan. There's no pension plan in real estate. There's nothing. So that's why companies like EXP are really enticing a lot of people, because they're thinking about, well, I don't have any retirement. At least now I can get some profit share and I can get some extra income. And I see the viability of that. But I think what we're in the business for is to help people buy and sell real estate. And so if you can build a business that's predictable, that can bring in a revenue, that has systems, that it doesn't depend on one person, but it's an actual system where you can plug people into it. That's what I've been working on for the last 3.5 years, and, tirelessly tweaking and adjusting and trying to build a system and templates. And we're at the point now where we're getting close to what I would consider, mastery around that area. Now, will I ever have mastery? Never, because I'll always be evolving and trying to get better. But I feel like our systems have become so much greater, especially since I've really focused on it in the last 6 months, because as exiting production has been top of mind for me. So I'm like, okay, how do I put the blueprints, the systems, the manuals, everything in place so that an agent can come in and step in and be successful the way that I've been?
Yeah. And so I think that's a relatively advanced answer, right? Like, you don't have to do all that right away, but you can begin to transition from job to business right away, right? Begin to, what's that?
Let me throw something at you on that topic. Just so
okay.
So say I'm one of these agents that's caught in the whirlwind right now. Okay. I'm producing, I'm making a really good income, but I really don't have a business. I've got a very high income producing job. Mm-hmm. What would be the first steps that you would sort of, if you were consulting me as that high producing agent who again doesn't have that systems, what would be kind of the first steps that you would look at with me?
Yeah. So I know exactly what it would be. We'll go through it here real quick. Let me give you a quick caveat here, because I'm going to say something that's really sexy and interesting and everybody loves it. It sells a lot of books, but it's not 100% true. But the concept here is you want to try to eliminate as often as you can putting yourself in a situation to trade your time for money. Right. And so if at the moment there is no money coming in unless you are out expending time and energy, it's a good job, but it's still a job, right? I mean, it's a very high income opportunity. You do get rewarded for your work. I mean, there's a lot of positives in the world of jobs. That's a pretty good job. Now, the bad side of it is, to Jason's point, you don't see your wife and kids, or you don't have, you never get to that point because it's all day, every day, and it owns you. You don't own it. You're constantly reactive instead of being proactive, right? So if that's where you are, or we're just talking about that in the hypothetical, one of the first things I would do is to say, look, we're not going to pull the plug on income immediately. What we need to do is find you some leverage with that time, right? So one of the best ways to do that initially is to find some tasks that you do not uniquely need to be doing, right? So let me give you an exercise, and I actually referenced this earlier. This is a perfect transition on accident, which is great. We don't do a lot of prep because we want to get our raw responses for each other's benefit, but also for everybody watching and listening. So quick kind of exercise here, right? If you've got a piece of paper in front of you, great. If not, you might want to check this out later. It's going to take a little bit of time, but here's kind of the framework of it, right? I want you to make 3 lists, and you don't have time to do all of this, but just to kind of write them down. Number 1 is the list of all the things that are irritations in your business. They really irritate you. You do not like to do these things. And in the world of real estate, that could be filling out CDAs, or what we call commission disbursement agreements. But there's probably some equivalent of that in your business where you got to send something over to the attorney or the title company that says, this is just kind of how things get routed. Maybe that's annoying to you. That would be an irritation. Taking out signs and lock boxes. That might be really irritating use of your time. So make a whole list of all the things. Take the time to do this. Super irritating. Then we're going to make a second list of the things that we call tolerations. Like, they're not the worst things. I can tolerate it, but they're also not my favorite things. So this is a list of things that's like, look, I don't mind going to closings. It's kind of fun and enjoyable, but it's definitely not my favorite. It's not like it uses my gifts and abilities. It's just kind of part of the process, right? And then the last list is your fascinations. Now, this is the good stuff. This is where you're truly fascinated. And you're like, dude, I lose track of time when I get to create marketing, or when, for some people, when I'm on the phone prospecting, or when I'm face-to-face with a potential client, whatever it is, building a website, I don't know. So you've got your irritations, your tolerations, and your fascinations. Okay. Now, the goal to move from job to business owner is to work in your areas of fascination like 80% of the time or more. Now, no one's going to get to 100. There's no such thing as perfect. There's some things that as an owner or a leader, you just have to do that you don't want to do. That's part of life. But we want to minimize that. So you would like to get 80% of your working time, energy, and focus in that third category of things you're fascinated with. I can tell you right now, Jason is fascinated by leading and investing in other people. I'm similar in that way. We do it differently, but we both, like, I come alive. I don't run out of energy. I get more energy. I could lose track of time. I could spend time having a great conversation with someone I can help for 5 hours, right? Jason's similar in his unique giftedness. So that's probably in your fascination category: speaking, teaching, training, leading, coaching, helping, solving problems, whatever. So here's what we do with the other two lists. All right. There's 3 things that we can do with the stuff on that list. All right. We can eliminate it. We can just say, look, that doesn't even need to be done. Just stop doing that. So we can eliminate it. We can automate it. Automation is an option for a lot of these things, not everything. So we could say, look, I don't need to send that email manually to every client once a week. That could be automated. There's a lot of things that can be automated. For the sake of time, automation's an option of what to do with those first 2 things. And then the third one is to delegate it. And this is where Jason asked me, what would I do if I were immediately looking at someone's business and helping them grow from that point of super busy, productive, high income, stuck job? I would immediately say, look, let's make these lists. Let's look at your business. And then what are the things that someone else could be doing? What are the things that no one needs to do? What are the things that a technology or a virtual assistant or someone could do? And then we'll see, okay, we'll do this whole exercise, and technical exercise, but also this might take months to think and talk through strategically and discover gifts and all that stuff. But once it's done, then we would say, okay, what margin did we create? Okay, we just got you 50% of your time back. Now, your instinct is probably going to be to go double your transactional load, because that's how hard charging producers do. That's how you got to this point of high income job. But before we do that, now let's assess your gifts and your goal, your vision, what you want to actually build. And let's fill that with work and energy that's going to get you there. Is it hiring? Is it creating systems? Is it resting? Is it spending time with your family? All of those are potentially wise and valuable things to do. So I could go into more detail, but that's what I would start with. What do you think?
I love that. This is huge value. I'm sitting here thinking about it, and I'm like, look, if I'm sitting down with somebody, these are the things that are a really good starting point.
And it's good to do with yourself every quarter or so, right? Especially when you're transitioning like you are.
And so I have a simplified version of this that I've talked about before, which is basically, what's a $20 an hour or less task that you can get off your plate. And I've looked at it from if your time's worth $300 an hour, it doesn't make sense for you to do a $20 an hour task.
Right.
Keep your time focused on the higher income producing activities. So
right.
I think
I only have one exception to that, is if you absolutely love to do it, then do it,
Sure. If you absolutely love, tweaking your website and working on it, that's amazing. But I can tell you right now, it's going to produce very little return on your investment. So just know that going into it. You might want to get to a point where you've leveraged your business and you can exit production so you can spend time doing that. Just my thoughts. But definitely, if it's something you're passionate about and you're happy, great. Not everybody needs to hit $300 an hour. If you're making $75,000 a year, but you're happy,
Right.
great, that's success. So I'm not here to tell anybody what success is for them. I'm
Right.
just here to say, if you want to have a business, it's a good idea to sit back and take a look at these things and figure out where you're wasting a lot of time. Here's the deal. Most employees that work a 9-to-5 job are not productive for 8 hours straight. In fact, you might get an hour and a half of like actual productivity.
So true. So true.
There's so many distractions. There's not a lot of things that people are doing very effectively. So once you're honest with yourself and you realize how effective am I being with your time, you'll realize that there's a lot of time you're wasting on things that are of very little value and importance. And I think this list here would be super helpful for people to just know, and then you can start creating a plan around it. So Todd, say I'm a single agent right now and I'm doing really well. I say I'm doing 35, 40, 50 transactions a year, and I'm wanting to get to that next level. And I think there's quite a few people that are in that phase. They're a little bit fearful. You know, like I'm comfortable, but I'm not that comfortable. What's the first hire you'd recommend for someone like that?
I knew what you were going to ask me, and I'll be really honest with you.
Yeah.
I think it's one of two answers, but again, and it's annoying, but I don't think it's always the same answer. I think more often than not, it's administrative help versus agent help, but I don't always think that's the case. And the reason I'm annoying in this answer is because with my team members and my coaching and consulting clients, I'm always telling them, we need to begin with the end in mind. We started the whole thing with this. What's your vision of your ideal life and how your business fits in? And I don't mean Mai Tais on the beach and just dates with your wife all day, every day. I mean, what's a great version of you working hard? So for most people, though, I think having someone come in and take most of the administrative tasks away frees you up to do the things you're most gifted at, that are most dollar productive, to Jason's point, that are probably the most fun and exciting, that are probably the most visible in the marketplace to help you build momentum and brand and growth and all those things. So that's usually the answer for most people. There's kind of a crusade in our industry right now to fight against the hiring of a buyer specialist or something like that. But I think there are certain business models where that's a fine first hire. But if I have to be forced to give you one answer, it's probably always most of the time it's going to be administrative help. Now, the one key I'll say, and I'll volley it back to Jason, is I would want to hire someone who enjoys that work, not just someone to take the garbage off my plate. You want to hire that person. I call them a checklist master. Like they get a shot of endorphins when they get to check something off a list. They're like, oh, give me all your lists and your files. Let me clean that up and organize it. Can I organize your desk while I'm here? You're like, good hire. Yes. Take it all. Get my car washed, call my wife and let her know, So probably administrative, but I do think it's important before you just start following someone's model of like hire admin, hire 2 buyer specialist, leverage marketing. You might wake up with someone else's business. So.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. I think you have to be self-aware and know what your strengths are. I mean, and maybe you're that person that's super organized, loves checklists, has every single process nailed, and you love doing that. Well, maybe you're looking for someone like me then, who can balance you out, who loves prospecting and following up with people and being face-to-face and loves that conversion piece and can do it at a high level. So it's a self-awareness piece for sure. And I agree with you. I'd say 85% of the time, it would likely be an admin person who can do that $20 an hour less task for you, that can help systemize your business and start putting the processes you need to be able to get that next level. And once you have that and you can get predictability in your business, what would be the third hire?
So again,
you're wanting to build a business. We're talking about a business. So you actually don't have a job. What would be the next hire in your opinion? And I'll give mine after.
Okay, so this is where I probably won't even give you a blanket answer, because I would want to know, what's your vision of the future? Like, what's your long-term growth opportunity? I'll tell you how I did it. Mine was administrative and then buyer agent help.
Okay. Mine was administrative help.
Client care.
Client care, what you guys would call an ISA.
Yeah.
And what that did though is I was able to have my admin taken care of, so I knew paperwork was done properly.
Right.
I had somebody that would be doing the prospecting for me and helping me with that, and then teeing up qualified buyers and sellers for me. And then I got to do what I'm best at, which is taking those relationships and doing those tangible business.
Yeah.
So what it created is departments and specialists that worked really, really well for me. The
Yep.
key is you have to hire the right personalities. If you hire a people person who only is amazing, loves people, but is so disorganized to be an administrative assistant, you're
Right.
going to have a problem. You want somebody that has good communication skills, but loves organization and thrives in having things orderly and has experience setting those up. And so the problem that people have with scaling businesses is they're often hiring the wrong people for the wrong job. And so
Yep.
my advice is always look for the one thing that person does exceptionally well and build their role around that. So they're spending 85-90% of their time around their strength.
Amen. Yep.
You have to build your team that way, and you have to look at it. What's their one thing? Hybrid roles generally don't work and they fail miserably. Why? Because there's no specialist in one thing. You can't execute on 5 goals. You can execute on one goal really, really well, but 5 metrics, it's too much.
Yeah.
You lose sight. It's so easy to just get lost in the shuffle. So figure out what their one thing is. Make sure you build the role around that. So if you're going to have somebody on a client care role, for example, you want to make sure that they have amazing communication skills, that they're able to build trust and value, and they're genuine people, and that when they talk to someone, the other person's going to feel that. They need to have a passion for doing it. Like, they have to really enjoy people. That has to energize them. If you hire somebody who's super introverted and hates talking to people, they can do it, but after a while, they're going to really hate the position. So you're going to have a problem. So
yeah, we tell people that you need to accidentally, instinctively do the ideal thing for your role, like 85+% of the time. If you're tired, if there's something going on at home, you're still doing exactly what's ideal for that role. And most of us, like relatively intelligent, hardworking people, could do lots of different jobs for a while on our good days, when we're focused, when we're energetic. But to your point, some people will make that poor hire and they'll ride that ship to the bottom of the ocean, And so I agree entirely with role specialization, using your God-given giftedness, doing something that you enjoy doing that, it's cheesy to say it and it's not always true, but there are days you're like, dude, I'd be doing this even if I wasn't getting paid. And that reiterates a point around kind of the $20 an hour work. That's not a negative. That's not an insult. That's someone who's loves that role too, right?
Totally.
They may be on their way to another role. They may be in a life stage or a situation where that's exactly what they want. I want to be able to come in, do something that's natural and exciting, and it, clicks in my brain and get some cash and get out the door. And, this work doesn't follow me home kind of thing. An outside salesperson is totally different. And one other point I want to make to bring it back to the original question is, when you're thinking about, I want to transition out of job to business owner or turn this job into a business, you've got to do the same thing for yourself also. What's my one thing that I should be doing 85-90+% of the time? Jason just said he actually really loves the prospecting piece, but he still found that delegating that was wise in his path to full business ownership and his path to mastery. That's a disciplined, pretty self-aware decision to make that a lot of people wouldn't make, And I actually, to be really honest, early on, I really struggled with getting out of production because I love it. I still do. I definitely feel more gifted and drawn towards what I'm doing most of the time now, but I still love to jump in and help with a, production problem, right? To create an amazing outcome. But I had to let go of that, even though that is one of my core gifts. But I was able to have more impact when I was able to leverage, 10, 12 team members as opposed to 10, 12 clients at a time or whatever, because each of them can now go do that. So I just think, don't only think about hiring for leverage, think about finding your ideal giftedness in that role and then leveraging the other things out and not dumping your junk on someone, finding someone who your overflow stuff is their ideal stuff. And then you really get what we're talking about.
Here's something I'm going to add to that, Todd. As you're scaling your business, you have to trust and empower the people that you are bringing on board with you. You cannot control every facet of the business, and you have to accept that there is going to be some errors that happen. There's going to be mistakes that happen. It's just it's impossible to have any sort of human interaction or human touch in business and not have that. Accept it. Mm-hmm. Perfection is the enemy of not good enough. And so you really need to empower your people, and they need to feel like you have their back.
Is that backwards?
Done better than perfect.
Done is better than perfect. Part of it's in white. Now, that's not universally true, but a lot of the time, you know.
Well, here's the thing. If your people are afraid to make mistakes and they're afraid to do stuff, you're going to have a lot of paralysis in your business, which is going to stop you from having growth. You need to empower people, and you need to be willing to do what I call moving the yardsticks forwards. Try something. As long as, of course, it's ethical, you don't want to break any rules. I'm talking about trying different initiatives and letting people have their creativity come through. So make sure, how's it sound? Better?
You're good. It just spiked. You're fine.
Okay. Make sure that your people are empowered. That's number one. And you have to trust in your systems. And yes, are some people not going to do it as good as you? Yes.
Yes.
That's okay.
Yes.
That's okay. Like I'm okay with that, but I know that I can work with them and get them to a level where they're going to be able to give world-class value as well, you know? And so you have to be patient. They're going to skin their knees.
And just to tack onto that point, and then I want to bring us back to the main point before we wrap it up, is your goal. And honestly, I was a business owner earlier than a lot of people, but I didn't truly feel like a business owner until we began to have people in roles where they did their job way better than me. You know what I mean? So are there going to be some things where you're like, dude, I would have done that so differently and I'd have done it better? Yes. And it's okay. As long as they're not underperforming and not delivering value, they can still be great. But I think really one of those big, you know, not red flag, but whatever, a good flag, you know, those light bulb moments is where you're like, dude, she has gotten so good at that. It's been a while since I did that all day. She's better than I ever was. That's a moment of pride as a business owner. That should never be something that you take as a threat or you're worried about or you're trying to keep everyone below you. That's insanity. You will never become a great business if that's your mentality. But if you want that, if you want to train, equip, and resource people so that they become better at what they do than you, that's what great businesses do. They hire people that are better than them at things, and that's how they get better as a company. Or you cultivate or you hire for the talent and they grow and nurture into that better thing. So point's been made. I won't beat it up too bad. But I want to ask you one more question and then we'll see where we are. Maybe we'll wrap up. But to go right back to your initial question, all right? So I'm an agent doing 50 deals a year or whatever. I'm making great money, but I'm just, you know, maxed out, spread thin. My time's destroyed. Before I hire, what are some things you would recommend somebody do to not necessarily sacrifice income, but to clean house a little bit?
Sure. So number one, do you have predictable lead generation? Do you have a pipeline? Do you have consistency in your business? Like, do you know where your business is coming from and how you're getting it? Because a lot of people will see an upturn in the market and they're getting, you know, more business just kind of fall in their lap. They're like, well, it's time to scale, but they don't actually have any real proper systems for lead generation. They're not actually investing in the right areas. So it's not really a predictable business. And then they make a hire, and then all of a sudden the market turns and they panic and then they fire the person.
Mm-hmm.
The goal here is to hire people that are going to be here long-term with you. You want to build a long-term system and team, and you don't want to be constantly going like this with your business. The market's going to do that, but your business can be quite consistent. So make sure that you have a solid foundation first. So you have consistent production that you feel comfortable with, predictability and where that business is coming from, and a consistent track record. That's number one. Number two.
Go ahead. Keep going. I was just going to say, I agree. Go ahead.
Okay. Number two, maybe make sure you have some resources behind you. So if you're spending every dollar that you make in real estate, you might want to change that up a little bit and actually start putting money aside, you know, because there is ups and downs. There's months that are going to be better than others. You know, January and February are brutal for me because it's tax season and there's a lot of extra expenses, right? But then it gets better as the year goes on and, you know, things can happen. So have some bankroll behind you. And then don't be afraid to try it out for at least 6 months. Don't just give up right away because you've seen a little blip, you know. Try things. Make sure you hire the right personalities for the right fit, and then get behind them and allow them to skin their knees. That's what I would suggest.
Yeah, great. Love it. I just wanted for the person watching or listening that's like, dude, I'm not ready to hire anybody, but I'm in that stage. I talk to a lot of people that are in that stage. It's like, man, I wouldn't have the time to recruit or train anybody right now. And to create that margin to do that, I gave you my little exercise in the beginning, right? Kind of the irritate, tolerate, fascinate, automate, delegate, eliminate, right? And you can go back and watch it if for some reason you missed that or whatever, but it's a great exercise. And the goal is what would come from that is the margin to do, Jason continues to point back to hiring. Obviously, you got to create some leverage. Someone's got to continue to sell if you're not going to, or if you're going to sell less or whatever it is. Now, honestly, for some people, selling less may be better for you. Sell less homes, make a little bit less money, but you're still making plenty, and you save your marriage and your kids and your health and those things, right? I've been a pretty consistent model of that. And I'm not saying like I'm a big deal. I'm saying I hang around with people that sell more houses than me all the time. Jason sells way more houses than me, and I've been doing it a lot longer. But we found a model for us that's highly profitable, based on what we offer and our fees and the way we run the business, and our agents are well compensated and all those things. But everyone's got a little different version of that. The bigger point I'm making is, how do you get from a point where you feel like I don't have 2 minutes to go to the bathroom, much less hire and train somebody? You've got to put systems in place, like Jason just said. And they may not even be systems for production. They may be systems for administration and for communication. And you may have to build breaks into your business, and you may have to start saying like, hey, I will not be available Sunday afternoon, or I will not be available Mondays ever. It's just, that's how we run, and begin to get healthy again and begin to get some room to think. So there's a million different versions of that, but I just wanted to talk about it because I get that question so much. It's like, okay, obviously hiring, but I'm in debt. I can't hire anybody yet. I don't have time to hire and train, blah, 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 blah. Now, sometimes those are excuses. You need to get over it and do the work. Other times you've got to create some gap and some margin to be able to add leverage. And so I just think it's important to acknowledge sometimes you can truly feel stuck when you're super successful from a financial viewpoint, but you've got to back off that a little bit. It doesn't mean you have to back off the gas pedal and stop growing, but you've got to create that margin. And maybe it's through automating, delegating, whatever. But you probably need to do that before you then go add a new responsibility, because you need to take full responsibility if you bring somebody on. If they fail, you failed them too. Now, if you've done everything you can do and they don't work out, that happens sometimes, but you should take that personally. So anyway, hopefully that's clear. I just know a lot of people might listen to this and be like, that's all great info, but I'm not ready to hire. So thanks a lot, guys. And I just want to make sure we hammered that. You can do that stuff. Bring us home.
I'm going to just say one last thing and we'll end the show today. I think it's been a really good topic here. When you bring somebody on, you are responsible for their success in the sense that they are relying on you and your systems and your expertise. And so if you're not actively engaged in really helping them, and you don't genuinely look to do the right thing with them, give them opportunities and give them, empower them, people aren't going to stick around, and they're going to leave you, and they're going to go somewhere else because they're not getting the value. So if you're going to go down this path, it's a very rewarding path. It's also why I have a lot of gray hairs. But it's so rewarding when you see people succeed and getting success. And that drives me. I genuinely want to see these people do incredibly well. And I give them so many really good opportunities that I could be selfish and take myself and make double the income on, but I don't, because I genuinely care about seeing them succeed. And when they feel that and they see that, they're much more likely to become your business partners and your allies and want to go to war with you. And that's the biggest. If you're going to go down this path, really genuinely get behind your people, and it will make such an impact in your business. And read the book, The Go-Giver. If you haven't read it, it's my favorite book. It's so simple, but it's exactly the mindset and philosophies to my businesses and the companies. When I train and consult with people, this is exactly the stuff that we focus on. And you just can't go wrong when you are genuinely looking to help people. So.
Yep. And my final thought is similar, but business, we try to transition from job to business for lots of different reasons. Money's only one of them. I'll just leave it at that. We don't need to tell you my reasons or Jason's reasons. You probably know them, but money's only one of those answers. And you don't need to apologize for the money piece, but please keep in sight, in clear sight, that money is only one of the reasons that having a business is an incredible thing. All right. It was a fun one, man. I think a lot of great stuff here. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Over and out.
That was good.
I don't think it's going to drop it.